Hello everybody and welcome back to Lester Loves Watches. Today we're looking at the Poljot Okean, a manual 2-register chronograph that was made in the Soviet Union in the middle 70s, right up to the end of the 80s. This is a watch which was supplied mostly to the Navy, from the title of the watch, Okean, which means ocean in Russian. And I think it probably got onto the hands of military officers of all types in those decades. Now, Poljot is the correct pronunciation of the watch company. It's not Poljot with a J, it's Poljot with a Y sound. The discrepancy comes from the way that you transcribe Russian into German, and the Y sound is often transcribed as a J in German, and that gives English speakers a bit of a sort of false friend, because they say Poljot and it's actually Poljot. Anyway, so linguistic problems aside, let's have a look at this lovely watch. So we have a 2-register chronograph, manual winding. On the right we have a 30-minute register. On the left we have the running seconds, we have a date at the 6. We have the bezel crown on the left, not a winding crown, and then we have the normal winding crown on the right. When you first look at this watch, you might think that it is a caliber 11 or 12 at a first glance, because of that crown on the left. And all that does, I'm not sure if you can see this on camera, but it just winds the blue bezel around there. That blue bezel could be used for timing purposes. The watch also has a telemeter scale picked out in red there around the dial. The chronograph is a nice action on this. It's not the smoothest I've ever found, and it's sometimes quite tough to operate. There we go. Give it a hard push and off it goes. So this watch was first produced in 1976, and the way the Soviet watch company went about getting it was by going to Valju. The Soviet Union bought a load of tooling and stock off Valju of their caliber 7733 and 7734 to make this watch. The name of the caliber in this watch is the Poljot 3133. It's very close to the Valju. It has a few little differences in the shock protection, for example. But you know, if you can work on a Valju, you can work on this caliber as well. Parts are quite easy to come by, actually, because there are a lot of these watches still in Russia and neighbouring countries. They're quite cheap. It's a very good way for a collector to get into a nice manual wound chronograph. You can pick them up for the low hundreds of pounds, I would say. Prices are rising, so don't wait too long to get them, especially for nice examples. There was a time, even 5 or 6 years ago, where you could pick these up for 30 or 40 quid. But those days have long gone, because collectors have realised what a nice watch it is. So if we look on the case, we have a mixture of polished and brushed surfaces. The flanks are brushed and the sides are polished. Amazingly, the brushing is still quite nice in this watch. This is 40 years old. And if you're trying to pick up one of these, you should get the best condition you possibly can. Same with all watch collecting. Condition, condition, condition. Going on to the back, we can see there the original Poljot bracelet there, with Poljot logo on the clasp. This is definitely a bracelet of the jingly jangly style. Very simple, very thin, pressed steel, very large links. It does the job, but it's very rudimentary. And especially sizing, if you can't size the watch as you want using the clasp holes there, you're going to have to take these links off, and they are a bit of a deal to take off. You have to literally bend the metal back on the link, take the link out, and then forcefully bend the metal back. It is possible, but it's not a very nice job to do. Now, the case back, I'm not sure if you can see the wording there, but this is the wrong case back for this watch. This case back says Sturmenskier, which means sort of stormtroops. And the case back you want, it says Kommandierskier on it. And then the acronym for the Soviet Navy, which is VMF, Военно-морской флот. In English, it looks like BM, and then the letter F in Russian, which looks a bit like an elephant's ears, looked at straight on. So make sure you get the right case back for this watch, not like I did. So the aesthetics of the dial, if you're a fan of Dugina chronographs, you may recognize this, this particular dial style. It came from a Dugina chronograph of the early 70s, very similar with the blue band in the middle running over the chronograph registers. I like it. It's a nice style. You can still get that Dugina if you look hard enough. There are very few of them around, but if you want the father of this particular watch on the Swiss side, have a look out for that Dugina chronograph. Reliability wise, the calibers that came out of the Soviet Union were a little bit rudimentary. It wasn't very easy to regulate them brilliantly. I'm getting, I think, about 20 seconds a day out of this watch, but it's not a watch that you can fine-tune to, you know, a few seconds a day. But that's not what I like about it. Timekeeping is kind of secondary to the aesthetics of the dial and the way the watch feels on the wrist, which is a nice chunky presence. It's about 13 mil in height, nice bit of weight to it. Yeah. So if you're looking for a cheap chronograph to get, definitely look out for these watches. You can still get them on eBay. You can buy them on Russian watch forums very easily. Just make sure that you don't get the reissue watches. No, by all means get the reissue watches if you want a more modern watch, but don't confuse the two. There were a couple of, or at least a couple of reissues, I think in the 1990s and the 2000s. And they will look substantially newer than these original watches, and the font will be different on the word Okean there as well. Now, in terms of the different references of this watch, they all look pretty much the same, but the early ones, which is the mid-70s, have a slightly larger logo for Okean, and they have slight differences inside the movement as well. So on the bridge in the movement, the early watches will have a logo of the caliber 3133, like a pictorial logo. And if you can match that with a low serial number, you'll know that you've got an early watch. The logo disappeared, I think, even before the end of the 1970s. Leaving just the serial number. So if you find one with just the serial number, that's going to be a slightly later one. But they're all nice, they're all good. Have a look and see what you can find. So here we are, Poljot Okean watch. Roughly, I think, mid-80s, this one. Nice, easy, quite a cheap entry into manual chronograph collecting. So there we are. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.